Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. A major power outage in Berlin has once again put Europe's critical infrastructure security under the spotlight. Tens of thousands of households were left without electricity after what authorities suspect was a deliberate sabotage attack claimed by a far-left extremist group. The incident comes amid growing warnings about hybrid threats and renewed concerns over Russian-linked sabotage across Europe. To unpack what this blackout tells us about vulnerabilities, threat escalation and preparedness, we're joined by Paulina Piasecka, Director of the Terrorism Research Center at Civitas University. Paulina, welcome to TVP World. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure. So, your initial thoughts about what was behind the fire that damaged the electricity generating station, which put 50,000 homes, made 50,000 homes lose their electricity. Your thoughts?
Well, the first line probably is the one that simply says that they are behind that attack, which is a terrorist group. The next question, which probably just jumps into mind, is whether or not it's the autonomous activity, whether or not they have decided to do that just by themselves, or maybe it is fueled just as it was during the Cold War, terrorist attack fueled by state sponsorship. In this case, probably the Russian Federation's sponsorship.
Okay, so which do you think, in your experience and expertise, is the more likely option? Were they acting independently, or were they a tool of a state? And if so, was that Russia?
Well, in my opinion, even if it's not a directly ordered attack, it is for sure for the benefit of Russian Federation. The escalation of threats and escalation of attacks against the critical infrastructure forces the European services or European institutions into the higher state of alert and into redistribution and redeployment of their assets and forces when it comes to protecting critical infrastructure. So I do think, and this is my deep opinion, that Russian Federation not only benefited from that, but also probably did whatever it might have done to fuel the need and this belief that this is a good moment to carry out such an attack.
Okay, I want to talk about the timing in just a second, but if one looks at this latest attack in the context of what's been happening across Europe, including in Poland and the United Kingdom and in other countries, which are similar sabotage attacks, is this a hybrid strategy of attack that is benefiting Russia?
Yes, it is. It definitely is. The whole idea of hybrid warfare is recreating a battle space from this two-dimensional battlefield as it was in the times past into the multi-dimensional, multi-layer sphere of military and non-military confrontation. And so forcing the states into a situation in which they not only prepare for the potential clash of the military forces in the well-organized and less chaotic universe of the military might, into the situation in which anything goes and any target, including vulnerable civilian targets, are sort of legitimate from the point of view of the attacker, is a very effective and quite often used tool within the framework of hybrid warfare.
So should Europe now be seeing this not or no longer as a national security threat, but a national defense threat?
That's the question about our definition of security. We used to have this clear division between the protection and defense, military and non-military sphere of the safety of both the state and its population. Right now, unfortunately, the security is much more integrated concept, and what's even more risky is the fact that we might face a situation in which the attack against the civilian target, the attack that is supposed to destabilize socially and politically a state, is at the very end of that road, aimed at weakening the defense potential of this state. That's theoretically what's behind the Gerasimov's doctrine, right? You weaken the state step by step in order to achieve this moment at which it will be simply unable to defend itself also militarily. So yes, I do think that we need to think about hybrid warfare as the critical threat to both protection and civilian safety and defense of our countries.
Now, if we take that perspective then, what is it that European countries should do to prepare and protect against these threats?
Well, probably one of the first things that we need is something that we don't have time for, which is a round of discussions about the internationally accepted legal basis for cooperation and mutual support in case of hybrid threats. This is something that is the basis and the root of the biggest risk connected with hybrid threats. We don't have in the international legal framework the triggers, the mechanisms to react to a threat that has this internal character that seems to trigger only or attack only the internal parts of the state's sovereignty that fall within the strictly defined sovereign competences of the state, which probably should force us into setting a mechanism, clear-cut mechanism that would allow us to ask for help and then quickly come to help of the state that is attacked on this hybrid level without the obvious armed attack that would trigger supposedly the reaction within the framework of the Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
So if I understand you correctly, we need to expand and at the same time more clearly define the definition of an attack under Article 5 of the NATO Constitution. Is my understanding correct?
Well, either that or add on another agreement, convention, or the treaty that would constitute a basis for reaction and for support in case of hybrid attack. I don't think we are able to modify in any way the interpretation and practical implementation of the Article 5, taking into account the fact that the US is one of the most important actors and pillars of NATO itself, and I don't think we are in a good place to redefine any elements of NATO framework, regulatory
Understood.
And practical.
In the last few seconds that we have left, just one quick question. If we assume that all of these attacks are sourced in Russia, and President Putin's not having a good day at the moment with what's happening in Venezuela, with his ships being held by the US and by Finland, do we expect him to retaliate by stepping up these hybrid attacks across Europe?
Well, let me say, even if it's just the last moments, I don't think that President Putin got a gift as great as American intervention in Venezuela in the last decade or two. The act, whatever we call it, of the US that took place in Venezuela has actually created a situation in which what Putin is doing in Ukraine is something that is being actively done also by one of the biggest supporters of the democratic and liberal order in the world. And so I think President Putin is very, very happy about what's happening in Venezuela. Whether or not he's going to ramp up his activities in Europe will depend on what China is going to do with American intervention in Venezuela, and whether or not they will treat it as a reason to ramp up their activities, say, regarding to Taiwan. So these are interesting times, and they will only get more interesting.
Interesting times indeed. Interesting times indeed. Paulina Piasecka, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights with our audience. Have a good evening. Thank you. Bye-bye. That brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks. Don't go away. Lots more coming up. Goodbye.